Welcome to Play Pause Turn. In this podcast, we discuss all things to do with TV, films, games and literature. We give our thoughts on the media we've been enjoying, old or new, and comment on anything topical. Hello, our hosts today are Alex, Bobby, Mark and myself, John. And we're going to do our usual intro question. Now we're going to be talking about The Batman. So my question to all of you, and I'm going to start with Alex, is what sort of Batman would you be? Would you be camp and colourful, ninja exec or emo floppy hair Batman? Alex?
For me, I'd be ninja exec. So, yeah, I would. Although I'm not so keen on a suit. So can I do like, the exec in Free Guy?
Oh, right, yes.
That's right. Yeah, can I
Edward?
be him?
Is he called Edward, I think?
That's something like that. But yeah. He just wears some really funky, massive sneakers and some really eclectic stuff because he can. So I'd probably be him.
Okay, so sort of Batman dressed like Fred Flintstone. Okay,
maybe there's a mix of the two then. Maybe.
Bobby, how about you?
I would be emo ninja exec. Exec for obvious reasons, because I'm always sharply suited, like Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. Christian Bale and I share our birthdays as well, and but emo because nice. I'm also a bit of a moody person. Sod.
Okay, that does make sense.
Yes,
you have that dark side to you, definitely. Mark, how about you?
I'm going to go outside of the box, and I'm going to say I would be the Batman from the Batman Dark Knight Returns comic, who was very violent, very angry, a bit old, and also probably the coolest iteration of that character, either from Frank Miller. So I would be the Batman, the Dark Knight Returns.
Can you ride a horse though, Mark?
I can ride I have ridden a horse.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I've been on a horse.
Okay.
But yes.
You've been on a horse is different to I can ride a horse, though.
Well, I think being on a horse, I've ridden on a horse. I'll say I've done that. There we go, definitely. I've shot a gun as well, so that's another thing.
Batman's not big on guns, though, is he?
No, he's not, no. But in that one he is, just in one part.
Yeah, well...
So, yeah,
okay. I think I would be camp and colourful, mainly because I resemble most of all the Batmans now in my life. I resemble Adam West. One thing I always remember about Batman, Adam West Batman, was his sort of shiny silver Batman suit, which is just very slightly muffin-topped over his utility belt. And also, I think just his style. He can be serious, but also, the comedy quips that he used to have. And I would like to always go around the world, walking around the world with colourful whack kaboom sort of words appearing behind me as well. I think that'd be quite cool. Whilst I, fought crime. Okay, back to the real world. So we're talking about the Batman. And we're going to be bringing our black umbrellas, a big pot of cash to bribe the police, and a pair of dodgy NHS glasses. And we're going to talk about the Batman. So before we get into any spoilers for people who haven't had a chance to see it yet, did you enjoy it, Alex?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's not the Dark Knight, and I don't think it could be, but I did enjoy it. I think the challenge is that lots of things have changed, and I had to think of it. But the more I think about it, the more I liked it. So I did enjoy it, and I think it's one of those things that I need to explore a bit more. But yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, how about you, Bobby?
So I went to see it with Rick. I'd really been looking forward to seeing this. As you guys know, I've been going on about it for a year or more. And Rick had already seen it. We went to see it at Wembley Cineworld. And he told me he knew I was going to absolutely love it. And we came out of it and he said, "What did you think?" And I was really quiet. And I said to him, "I'm not sure I ever want to see that again." I didn't have that feeling like, I can't wait for it to come out on digital download. But I wasn't writing it off, but I just needed to let it sit. And as I've let it sit over the last few days, I'm liking it more and more, and I'm detaching it from any comparisons with the Nolan trilogy because I don't think that's fair. So yeah, I actually am thinking about. I'm probably going to end up going to see it again this weekend.
You've almost had the same experience with this as you had with Tenet, didn't you? Really, in that you kind
That's
of
true. I got obsessed with Tenet, didn't I? I'm still obsessed
which is
with Tenet.
interesting.
You did.
It's the same feeling. Yeah, it is actually the same feeling. So
I think we'll
I've
come
got a
back
feeling
to that.
I'm really going to get
Yeah.
obsessed with this film.
You
So I
also,
think
you
I liked
also,
it.
you also. I hear you're also a bit of a Dark Knight vigilante whilst the film was on, Bobby.
Yes. So we were in the back row, and to my
What's he
right,
done now?
there were 7 teenagers who were talking the entire way through. And I mean, loud enough that the rest of the theatre were turning around, looking at them every minute. And it got to about the hour and a half point, and I was like, do you know what? I can't do another hour and a half of this lot. So I actually just got up. It was the bit where, spoiler alert, when Alfred and Bruce have their heart-to-heart. You know the bit. I won't spoil it right now. And it was a little bit quieter. And I got up and I just turned around to them and I said, you lot need to shut up or I am going to throw you out. And they were all getting really sort of, North London cheeky. And I said, seriously, if I hear one more peep out of you lot, I'm not going to get you thrown out. I'm going to throw you out myself. Do you understand? And that was it. They shut up for about an hour. And then an hour later, they started again. And then I just got up and I just picked 2 of them up by the scruff of the neck, hurled them out. And the rest followed promptly. So yeah, it's crazy. I was going absolutely nuts. Like, I wanted to kill someone.
Well, it's a breach of the rules, isn't it? For a start, I mean,
Definite breach of the rules.
breach of the rules. Yep.
It's like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
annoying, and you always get a couple. Mark, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, as you all know, I'm a massive Batman fan. It's my favourite character, etc. I'm obsessive about it. Unfortunately, this one didn't work for me. There was some interesting bits in it, and there are some things I liked about it, which we'll get into. But overall, it just didn't work for me at all. It's far too long. It needed to be at least half an hour, 45 minutes shorter. And we'll get into the characters and their motivations, etc. But in these sort of films, you need to root for someone. Even if you don't like them, you have to be invested in the characters. And for me, there was no one in this film I was invested in. There's some good performances in it, again, which we'll talk about. But there's no one in this who I want to see again, enthralled with it, really interested in that character, want to see them again. And it all felt very disposable to me. It just felt very hollow, and it was too moody. It was dull. Like, how do you make a Batman film dull? I mean, that's an achievement in itself. I don't know how you do that, but I was just bored, really, and I kind of was, apart from some of the things they tried to do in it, but I was bored. I looked at my watch a few times. I never do that in films.
Well, that was going to ask you. See, for me, it passed the watch test. I didn't look at my watch once, but I guess again,
Right.
this is quite a Marmite film for Batman fans, don't you think, Mark? I think.
It's massive. Yeah, massively. Yeah,
I like
definitely.
the change in direction, and I was, hooked for the nearly 3 hours it was on. But obviously, you weren't, which is interesting. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enter spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it and then come back. But let's pick apart the story to begin with. Alex, what are your thoughts on the story?
So I thought it was really nice to go back to a sort of procedural sort of crime case. It was really nice to kind of see that progress. I thought it was really good the way that Gordon and Batman worked together. and that connection between the two of them was, probably the most authentic apart from Alfred. But so those bits were really, really nice. I think one of the things that we probably haven't given it enough credit for is the depth that it's created. I think the world itself that they've created is actually got quite a lot of layers to it. We don't always see those layers, but we kind of know that some of them exist. But it's kind of nice because it's kind of feels a bit grounded. The only problem is it doesn't always show us how they got from A to B. It doesn't explain things as well as some others would do. It feels very much like we get a glimpse into this world rather than really feeling part of it. And I think that's intentional, but it does feel that way. We feel like we've got almost blinkers on, and the things that we see, like we see it in real things, but there's other stuff that we're not seeing because it's just not included. So, but I do think it's hard. I think you in your mind you have the Nolan films in your mind. And I think that putting that away as much as you can, and trying to ignore that, is probably the best way to progress with it. But yeah, so those are my kind of initial thoughts, really.
How about you, Bobby?
I mean, right from the get-go, because we have the opening scene with the current mayor being stalked by who we then find out is the Riddler. And the way that he's murdered is just so brutal. So from the very opening sequence, this film is like, it's not there to mess around. It's very adult. It's very graphic. It goes back to probably some of the best Batman one-shot comics that were ever written, that go back to the essence of the character, that Batman, the world, the villains are probably among the darkest in Marvel, DC kind of folklore.
Bobby, Matt Reeves cited the Batman comic Ego as an influence on the way Batman was portrayed in this film.
Right.
Darwin Cook, I think, wrote Ego.
Yeah, there you go. And that actually really helped me to push aside all the Nolan stuff and go and settle into my seat, apart from the idiots to my right, and go, right, okay, I'm really going to get into this. And I really liked like Alex said, it's probably outside of the Nolan trilogy, the first Batman film to create all of these layers. So, you've got that kind of harkening back to Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman 1989, where the bat symbol is meant to strike fear into criminals when they see it. But here, it's, his voiceover is like, I can't be everywhere at once. And basically, the fears created by looking at every single shadow and villains thinking he could be coming out, so that he can then focus on, in this case, the gang that he then goes and sorts out. They're the ones that aren't scared of him, but everybody else stops what they're doing because they're just like, bat symbols out. They're just looking around, just getting completely paranoid. He could come out of anywhere.
That's a lovely scene, that, isn't it? That's a lovely scene, actually.
I just where they slow move the camera, and there's that villain sort of standing in front of that facade, and there are just shadows around him, and then it then shows you his point of view, and you're wondering if Batman's going to come out or not. Obviously, he isn't, but that's the way I thought. The way that Matt Reeves did that, I thought was so clever. So now I'm talking about it, I'm really getting into this movie more and more, and I also really, really liked the fact that it really did play out like a Zodiac or another David Fincher Seven style type serial killer thriller, and I think that it actually will make this Batman rewatchable, but also more accessible to a wider audience. Because when I explained. So Carolina had no interest in seeing this whatsoever. She's just like, oh god, another Batman movie. Not interested, whatever. And she did actually quite like the Nolan films. But I just said to her earlier today, I said, I've been thinking about this film for the last few days, and I think you'd really like it because she's really into those Scandi, Nordic type, serial killer type, really dark kind of thrillers and stuff. And when I mentioned that to her, she was immediately like, oh, well, if that's how they're doing it, it's more sort of serial killer, thriller, kind of murder mystery type thing, but it happens to be a superhero that's doing the detective work, then maybe we should go and see it. So I think that as the debate around this film comes out more and more as the days and weeks go on, I think it will benefit from repeat viewings, and also I think the audience is going to widen as well. So I think it actually had something for a lot of people.
It's interesting you say that, because I do think also you say it's going to widen the audience, but I do think it's also going to divide the audience as well. Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely a whole demographic who are really keen on the dynamics and the action of the Nolan films and want that to continue. I think there's an audience who are much, and Batman fans have been around for years and they're getting older and older. For me, I'm with you. I'm much more focused on the whodunit side of things in this film. I really liked that kind of slow reveal. And we all know that Batman's the world's greatest detective, and I don't think it's been, as you say, been addressed as much in the other films. But I'm also finding, and this is probably why I have such a different opinion about films to Mark, I'm starting to enjoy the slower character development story film rather than action films these days. And I find, and that's fine. It's fine for us to like different things. So for me, I found this world more believable. I was more invested in the characters, and I preferred this to. Did you ever watch the Gotham TV series?
Yeah.
Because I found that a bit frustrating because they never got to actually showing. Oh, I stopped watching it, so maybe I missed it. But I never really got to the actual character, the heroes and the villains becoming who they were. It was very much the beginnings and the origins. I found that a bit frustrating. But what I liked about this film was that they didn't beat around the bush in terms of who the characters were, but also you could see it was more believable how they were coming up to become those characters. Does that make sense? It was still a tease, but it was a tease with a payoff at the end. So I think that's where this film's successful. But I can also completely understand why some fans who are looking forward to a lot of swooping down and punching and batarangs flying and the vehicles coming out and eclipsing the moon and things like that, they didn't get that as much in this film. But I think we'll talk about the cinematography and design later on. Let's talk about the characters in this film, which of any film, a superhero movie is always going to have a focus on characters because they're such iconic figures. So Alex, who really piqued your interest in this film?
So Andy Serkis as Alfred was really watchable. It was a bit of a shame that we didn't see more of him, but I know that his role doesn't need that. So he's not the star of the show, but he's such a good actor, and I think he did really well with what he was given as well. So I think in that respect it was really powerful, and it's just nice. Honestly, whenever he was on screen, I was like, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this. Whatever it is, it's just he's just got that presence.
Yeah.
Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, that was really good actually. I think her backstory was strong. I think that she really gave it a human element, and she just got the right element of sort of interest between her and Bruce and or Batman, and it's just, I think that balance was really nice, and I thought that was probably a really strong performance from her. I can always watch Jeffrey Wright as Gordon. I can watch him on anything. Actually, I think he's really consistent. And yeah, so I really thought his role as Gordon was strong. I want to defer Patterson to someone else because I want someone else to start that conversation. So
I'm happy to.
Well, we're doing it in order here, Mark.
No, I know. I'm making.
Don't jump your batarang yet. Bobby,
No.
what are your thoughts?
And Mark, the reason why we use Bobby and not Roberto is so that I can always go before you. So, because this is a democratic process. So, Batman, definitely. I love the focus on him, and I love the fact I love his journey throughout the film from beginning to end, because at the beginning, I mean, it's like when the criminals say to him, who are you? What are you? Whatever. And he says, I'm vengeance. And if you hadn't seen the trailers, you would have thought his reply was going to be Michael Keaton's I'm Batman. But it wasn't. I'm vengeance, because that's what it was all about for him. He was just so angry at everything. I mean, he's angry at obviously his whole situation losing his parents. He's angry at Alfred. We've never seen that before, where he basically can't even look Alfred in the eyes, and any interaction between them, he's basically making some snarky comment about Alfred not being my, you're not my dad or whatever. And then, through the journey of the film, you get to the end, and where he's, almost sacrificed himself for everybody, put his life on the line and so on. And then suddenly there's that kind of maturity, and then it's, it's not about vengeance, it's about being hope and so on. So, I thought that was great. Robert Pattinson is such a great actor for me. You got to forget about all that Twilight stuff. And I think even within that, he didn't do a bad job. I like the first one, actually. But that's a conversation for another day.
It certainly is, Bobby.
The source material's rubbish. I tried reading the books, but oh god, they're so badly written. And I think what I wasn't sure about was the emo Bruce Wayne. But then what I've realised, having thought about it a lot longer and also just sort of listened to other reviews and so on, is that he, his hair's long and floppy. A lot of people have got a problem with that. I don't think he cares about any of that stuff. He doesn't care about sort of showing off and being a rich playboy and so on. That part of the Bruce Wayne character and split between Bruce Wayne and Batman, the two personas, it's not there yet. We might see it in future films, but right now, this Bruce Wayne / Batman doesn't care about any of that material stuff. So I can see. Do you know what? I'm just gonna. I've got a few more things that I want to say here. Not because
come back to you, Bobby. Let's defer to Mark.
Mark is chewing his fingers off, and I love this. I've so missed you, mate. And also, I'll just finish because I'll let Mark get on to Battinson. Selena Kyle, I thought Zoe Kravitz was great. Obviously, she's absolutely beautiful. I thought Anne Hathaway did a good job in The Dark Knight Rises, but Zoe Kravitz just brought a real grittiness to the role, and I thought she was brilliant. Obviously, stunning to look at as well, but yeah, she was great. John Turturro, I wasn't sure about when I realised he was Carmine Falcone, because in the comics, Carmine Falcone is quite a butch sort of, typical Marlon Brando-esque Italian mob boss. Yeah. But Turturro is a great actor, and I think he did a really good job with it. And Paul Dano just freaked me the hell out. So, again, he did a great job. I think it helps that naturally in real life he does look a bit sort of weird and freaky. But yeah, he did a great job. And I thought Jeffrey Wright was really, really well cast as Jim Gordon. I mean, for me, I still think Gary Oldman is my best Jim Gordon that's ever been on screen. But I think Jeffrey Wright did a great job.
He's the most Frank Miller in Jim Gordon, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah, very much so. But Jeffrey Wright did a really great job, and I thought the chemistry, in inverted commas, between him and Robert Pattinson was really, really good. So yeah, there's loads that I want to say about this, but I'll hand over to Mark now.
Go on then, Mark.
Sorry. I just want to say, the reason why I didn't like this film is because I couldn't get invested in it. It's not to do with the action. Obviously, you like the action as well, but I appreciate like a crime drama, a thriller, and the 7 aspect to this as well. So that's why I didn't like the film. I just couldn't get invested in it. It wasn't particularly about the action, which was fine. In regards to performances and character, etc., I'll start with the positives, and I'll just say, yeah, Paul Dano, he does weird well. It's not the first time he's played this sort of role. He's very good in a film called Prisoners. I don't know if anyone's seen that as well, with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal as well, when he played like a killer. So he's done this sort of role before, but he does it very well here as well. In regards to characters, right, on Pattinson and this version of Batman, okay, I don't like emo Batman, okay, because he's just permanently miserable throughout this, and I understand it's only his second year, and he's not developed the Playboy persona. I get all that, but he's just a miserable something or other all the way through. And I was watching it thinking, how has Alfred stayed with him for like the last 25 years? He must be like, if he was like, he's been like this all the time, he must get fed up with him as well. He was just it. I said this to Alex when we come out the film, actually, because we saw it together. I said, this is a Batman film for the Twitter generation. This is like, it's like Twitter will love this film. This is the Twitter Batman. And that's how I felt about it. It just didn't feel like Batman. Some of the things he does, like when he goes to the nightclub and he knocks on the entrance to get in, and he does that again as Bruce Wayne. And the idea is, that, do they recognise him as Batman or not? Like, Batman doesn't knock on the door asking to come in. He goes up through the top light, or he uses cunning and skill to get in. He doesn't knock on the door, and he doesn't just walk in a club and get shot at, and so all the bullets ricochet off like individual people, like bystanders as well. That's not what Batman does. So that annoyed me. And he just come off as a whiny, miserable little git. And look, yes, what he goes through is a massive thing for him. Of course, that's what drives him. But there's just nothing redeemable. There's nothing likable about him. There is nothing redeemable about him. And yes, Bob makes a very good point at the end where he has some character development where he goes, I can't just be vengeance, I have to be something more than that. So maybe you'll get more of that in a sequel. And I understand where they're coming from this, but it didn't feel like Batman to me. It just didn't feel like a Batman film. It felt like, let's make 7 and a few other, and the Zodiac, and then put Batman in that environment. And he didn't even look like Batman. He doesn't even look like Batman. He doesn't come across as Batman as well. Like with people like Keaton and Bale, there's a bit of crazy in them. You could, you look at them, you think, you know what? Yeah, they could. Yes, I do believe they could hurt people every night and feel okay about it. But this bloke is just a miserable little dweeb, and it just didn't work for me at all. I'll shut up because Bobby wants to come in as well.
Bobby.
I just wanted to say, with all the moodiness and stuff, this film only takes place across a couple nights, so anyone's allowed a miserable couple days, aren't they?
Yeah, but there's miserable, and then there's this guy, isn't there? Really, let's be honest about
the guy who's had his family murdered in front of him, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Years ago, though.
He's not.
Yeah,
it's not like
horrible things happen. Of course, right? But are you telling me he's been like this for the last 20 odd years? I mean, come on.
Possibly. I mean, it doesn't help him that he sees a child in the service that makes him think of himself. I mean, that might have brought back some memories for him as well.
Yeah.
When
also, Keaton Batman was in his mid to late 30s, so he'd been doing it for a while. Bale Batman in Begins wasn't exactly a barrel of laughs, and then by The Dark Knight, that was 10 years. That's 10 years later, and then The Dark Knight Rises is probably another 10 years after that. And then Ben Affleck Batman. Did someone say I'm not allowed to mention Ben Affleck Batman? We'll talk about Ben Affleck Batman later.
Let's
We
let's
should
not
really
talk
do a
about him.
comparison. No, we should.
I don't mind
Well,
Affleck, actually.
Ben Affleck
All right.
Batman is obviously quite kind of seasoned. Oh, Ben Affleck was a great Bruce Wayne, though, I thought. I mean, he's got ticks the boxes for Mark, who wants, sense of humour, all the jokes and all that stuff.
True.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's like,
And then
I'll be honest with you. Go on.
I was just gonna. And this Batman is really young. He's like, probably early 20s or something. So of course he's going to be a moody sod.
So this film, the original title for this film was Batman Vengeance. And originally, before Matt Reeves took on the directorial role, it was meant to be Ben Affleck directing this.
Yeah.
And actually, I think Ben Affleck had written a really good storyline, and Matt Reeves loved it, but it wasn't quite the noir he wanted. But I think it's really interesting that we have such differing opinions on this. I think it's really interesting. I liked Harpats. I liked the change. I liked the fact he broke the mold a little bit. I think this is his difficult first film, and he's going to maybe mellow out a bit, as you say, in the next two. He signed up for 3 films. So we have, I think the question we need to ask Mark at the end of this podcast is whether he's going to go and watch the second one. We'll come to that later on, Mark. I thought Zoe Kravitz did a big job of shouldering most of the emotional weight of this story, really. I'm with you. I'm a big John Turturro fan as well. I thought he was really good as Carmine. He was more greasy and slimy, wasn't he, than and kind of remind me of a spiv more than a big sort of mafioso. For me, I thought it was just an interesting change, and I think they had to do it in some respects. It would have been very, very hard to change the characters without distancing itself from the Nolan films. I think that would have been really, really difficult. I think time will tell on the box office figures, and I'm sure at some point Alex is going to get his twinkle fingers out and find out the figures for us. I as I said before, I thought that the characters here really held together really well. I really, really wish, the one thing we need to maybe finish off on the character aspect here is I really wish I'd known before I went into the film that Colin Farrell was Oswald Cobblepot, because I did. For me, he was an unknown who was brilliant as that character. I thought it was really good. I had no idea it was Colin Farrell until I saw his name come up at the end of the film, because I went into this not wanting to know very much.
But you see,
Mark,
that's the
to finish
brilliant
off
thing. Sorry, John, just to say that the very fact that we haven't mentioned Colin Farrell till now, it mirrors what Matt Reeves was intending for the film, because the Penguin character was kind of he wasn't the main focus through the whole thing, and he was the one that was meant to be the trigger or the catalyst for the Riddler's plan all coming to fruition, right? And that's testament to the writing, the direction, and obviously Colin Farrell's performance as well. That poor guy spent 3 hours a day in makeup. They got it down to 2, and then it was an hour to take off. But he said just the whole process of it was just so weird and unnerving for him. But I guess it really helped with his performance, because once the makeup was on, he just felt so weirded out and different. He just felt so far removed from himself. And I wonder if that's possibly a choice they made as well, to put him under so much makeup, so that we would get completely detached from the fact it's Colin Farrell.
Yeah. He went into a coffee shop dressed as Penguin, as Oswald, and nobody spotted. I mean, they saw him and thought he looks a bit scary, but no one batted an eyelid, just thinking he was under layers of makeup and foam. Mark, what I was going to say is Matt Reeves.
Yeah.
So whilst Arpats was filming and working on Tenet, he'd already had the audition for Batman before Tenet. But Matt Reeves wrote this story with Robert Pattinson in mind when he wrote the film. So all along, that was his first, his first act of choice for the film. And also, he modelled Bruce's character on Kurt Cobain. He didn't want him to be this flashy exec. He wanted him to be like the reluctant rock star who didn't want the publicity. He had the money, but didn't really want to be seen. And I think that kind of explains, the use of the Nirvana song in the trailers, but also the look of him. I mean, with the eyeshadow, with the dark makeup around his eyes and his hair down, he looks exactly like a very famous picture of Kurt Cobain. So going into this film, it was always going to be a very, very different Batman, I think, and that's it's a risk. It's definitely a risk. I appreciate that. Well, go on. Last thoughts before we move on.
Go on. I have no problem with different, and you've got to do different because of what's come before as well.
Yeah.
And it's sort of talk about Kurt Cobain, but you've got literally 80 years worth of material about Bruce Wayne and Batman. Maybe use that instead of saying, let's make him like Kurt Cobain. Doesn't make sense to me. All right. If
God, John, you put the idea in his head now. He wasn't thinking about that before.
No, I was. But you've got literally decades of material there. Maybe use the actual source material. Although he did take aspects of certain stories, we can go into that as well. The only thing I was going to say, on Penguin, right? I found it really distracting. I thought it was just too much makeup. I thought they would have been better off casting like a larger actor.
I didn't notice it at all. I didn't notice him.
I thought the makeup was amazing. It was so natural looking.
Did you know he was Colin Farrell in Tin Mark?
I knew it was Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Do you think that marred it for you a bit?
I mean, maybe, but it doesn't look like a real person to me. Like he's got that scar there, doesn't it? I don't know. It didn't look right to me. It was just too done. If that makes sense. I thought they'd been better off getting someone like a Josh Gad to be in it, or
I think he was asked actually, not a Josh Gad.
Yeah.
They asked Jonah Hill to be him actually, and Jonah Hill was actually he wanted to be Riddler, not Penguin, so he turned it down. Yeah.
Oh come on, Jonah Hill. Yeah. Jonah Hill would have been so distracting in this.
I know.
No way. I'll look carefully again, but I honestly, I knew it was Colin Farrell going in, but. I didn't think the makeup looked weird or anything at all. I thought they did such a great job, really.
Yeah.
But I will have a closer look when I see it again, because I am going to go see it again now. I've decided.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
In terms of how the film kind of held up as a story, we talked a lot about the story, but was there anything about it that any twists or turns you didn't expect? Were you happy with the way it finished, concluded? Was that for you? Did it hold together all right for you? Alex, you go for it.
So story-wise, I think it did reasonably well. I think that the third act was surprisingly good. I think it's something that kind of. I think the problem was that because it was a long film, I was thinking, "Oh, great! Are we almost done now?" And we weren't done because we had another 5 minutes to go. So I think it was. I think the third act actually when it arrived, I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, they've done this. Oh, that's good," and it kind of just kept it ticking along really nicely. So I think story-wise, I think it did pretty well. I just think that the character work for some of them was challenging. The biggest one for me was Bruce Wayne. I just felt like the character was underbaked, and I think that's why he's really hard to connect with, because they don't bring you along his journey at all. They just use a couple of bits to kind of say, yes, this is what happened with his parents, and yes, this is what's happened with Alfred, and then that was it. There was no.
Do you think they'll explore that more in the next film, and maybe have a few flashbacks or a bit more?
I really hope so.
Young Bruce.
But his job as a billionaire. Well, I mean, he's not really a philanthropist at the moment.
Is he just sitting on a pile of cash and inheritance?
He's just sitting on. He's sitting on the fund, and the only thing
that trust fund.
The only thing we see of this is that he gets to go to a prison. He gets to go to a funeral with the other sort of elite of Gotham, and we're not seeing anything of him being invested in Gotham. and that I think that's the bit that I really struggled with, because
Well, I'm all about the corruption of his father. I mean, that I thought that was an interesting twist. That, Thomas Wayne's always portrayed as this kind of benevolent figure in the comics and the films before,
Yeah.
and actually discovering that his father went against his very values was quite a shock for him. I quite like that part of the
I
story.
did think that worked actually, but then you had to bear in mind the source of the material. And I think that's what he didn't really think about. He just and I now can't just get my head out of him being emo Batman. That's my problem. Is once you see him as that, it gets annoying, because you kind of go, oh, he's at it again. So I think that's the bit that I wish they'd have spent a little bit more time. Like they had on paper, they had all of it. They had the Wayne. I can't remember what it's called now. The
Wayne Manor?
The fund, the big fund.
Wayne Corp.
It was like
the orphanage money, wasn't it?
They had the big renovation fund or whatever
That's
it's called.
right,
Yeah, that was.
And
renovate, wasn't it?
Something like that. But that was an absolutely crucial part of like the money story. But I had no emotional story from him. I just had, oh, okay, we're doing detective stuff. Cool, let's do that, which was great. But it didn't get me closer to him. I found the Riddler's story really good. I actually was really impressed with it. The only thing I wanted to know was where did he get all his resources from?
I wonder if he was. Asking for help from all his friends on that weird kind of chat group.
Yeah, they kind of alluded to it, but they needed.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that was like reasonable. So like everyone bringing their own gun seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
But him sort of putting things around the city to explosives and stuff to blow up, I felt like it could have done with a little bit of help, but honestly I think the film was long enough as it was, and I think they literally were like, we don't have to talk about this bit because this isn't important to the story.
Do you know what it reminded me of, Alex, this bit? You were talking about the Riddler's resources. It reminded me a little bit of Fight Club.
Oh yeah.
And how Ed Norton's character resources everything just through a network of friends, and Fight Club is like an old version of a chat group, isn't it? It's a meet-up group, and I wonder if perhaps that's kind of they were kind of hearkening to the Fight Club sort of underground cells of people and who get their resources. Maybe one's a carpenter or one's a hardware store owner and so on.
Yeah, good point.
Which is in Middle America that's quite a big thing, isn't it? With the NRA and everything.
There's a line of dialogue where they discover Riddler's hideout. There's a line of dialogue where they say he was a forensic accountant.
A what?
So I took a forensic accountant.
Oh, right.
So I took that he's been divulging funds and probably been taking off the top for himself as well.
I see.
Yeah, that's clever.
But I think,
interesting.
I think that's part of it, and also I do think it's the chat group and the incel thing as well.
It's a nice bit of detail.
So I think
there,
it's
Mark.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Alex, before we move on?
No. I think
Bobby.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. It's very much that kind of incel sort of thing that they're playing on that's been a lot in the sort of media recently. Because they do say as well when they discover his hideout and they discover that he's got this little sort of online group that he's sort of brought together, that he's got about 500 followers. And then he's got them to do his bidding, as it were. So twists and turns. I kind of slightly disagree with Alex, and I appreciate this is all about perspective as well, but to say that he is not invested in Gotham, this is the first Bruce Wayne we've seen who doesn't live in Wayne Manor. He lives in the heart of the city. He's got an apartment in Wayne Towers, right? And the reason why is so that he can get on his motorbike every night and be right in the middle of it. He's constantly listening to police scanners and all that sort of stuff. It's just the way that he's invested in the city is different at the beginning of the film, because he's all about vengeance and just going out and finding people that are evil and that are doing bad things and so on and cleaning up the streets. obviously the arc then takes him to the end of the film where he realizes that his job is to be more a symbol of hope and all of that sort of stuff, where hopefully then we'll see in a future film that's where the philanthropy and all of that kind of stuff as Bruce Wayne starts to come in. But for me, I'm like, this guy can't be any more invested in trying to do something for this city. It's crazy. Actually, it would be like me having an apartment above my workroom, because I'm so invested in cleaning up all the badly dressed scumbags that are walking around. Sorry, anyway. But I
You should come to West Kent, mate.
but I mean, I thought it was quite interesting that he lived in the Wayne Towers office building rather than at Wayne Manor itself. So I love the as I said before, I love the Fincher 7 Zodiac kind of vibe of the whole thing. I really, really, really want to go see it again now. I'm not going to go on too much about it. But I really, really want to go see it again now. That guy takes some knocks for this city. I'll tell you one thing that I really did like, though. I felt as uncomfortable as those cops did whenever Batman was sort of walking into a crime scene with Jim Gordon as Jim's sort of guest, as it were, right? Consultant, whatever. The way that was shot, filmed, all of the extras acted and everything was just brilliant, because
he's a guy in a batsuit. It's ridiculous, isn't it, really?
Exactly. But it's also the unpredictability of him, because none of them want him there. They would all probably rather be able to pile in on him and take him down and arrest him for whatever. So there's all of that going on, and he is so unpredictable. I mean, even later on in the film, where they've got him in a interview room, and there's like 100 cops or whatever around him, and then every so often something's said, and there's a scuffle that breaks out, and they try and pile in on him, and they immediately just back off once he's thumped the first one or two of them. I just all those little details that I'm recalling now that actually just this film just, the score of this film goes up and up in my head every 5 minutes. It's crazy.
How about you, Mark? How's the score for you at the moment? Tell us what you think of this.
It's not improving, I'll be honest. I was a little bit disappointed with the revelation about who the rat was, because that was a big part of it, and I was really hoping that was going to be something really interesting, or a good shock, or a twist or something like that, and it didn't really pay off. I didn't think, for me. That was a bit disappointing with that, and I think I don't think the way that Carmichael Coney dies really works either. I don't think that works. I've seen a lot of reviews and people doing it, reviewing the film, saying that the film has a bad ending, a lot, with all the Riddlers and that. I don't necessarily mind that part. I like the idea of Gotham being flooded. I think that's very clever. There's a comic book called No Man's Land and Cataclysm, and what happens is there's an earthquake, and then what happens is Gotham sort of becomes like it's under martial law. Sort of think of Escape from New York sort of thing. It becomes sort of that, and that would probably be interesting in a sequel. So I'll give it credit for that. And one positive I will say, and what I did think was very clever, and we hadn't seen before, is the eyes. He's got the contacts that are recording everything that he sees, and you see him doing the playback, and he does that with Catwoman as well. I thought that was very, very clever, and that is something we haven't seen before, and that I was really impressed with that, actually. But that was probably the best part of the film for me, was how clever that was. But yeah, it was I found the thing about the rat a little bit like a bit of a non-story towards the end, and Riddler's his reason for doing it, aside from cleaning the city up, it seemed a little bit muddled to me as well. I didn't quite get his why he wanted to do it a bit as well.
So he was there was the renewal project that
Yes, he's
Bruce
obviously a
Wayne's
part
dad
as a
was
kid in
was
that.
meant,
Yeah.
He was
like
invested in that, wasn't he?
like
Personally.
politicians promising all this
Yeah.
stuff and then they don't deliver on it. And it
Yeah,
was
I get
basically
that, yeah.
that sort of example in this, and that's what, he was an orphan. His orphanage was abandoned, and it was literally left for rats to kind of overrun the place and so on. And so that was basically his whole kind of motivation for cleaning up the city and so on. That's why
I
the
found it
people
quite
that he
easy
was...
to sympathise with the Riddler, though, Bobby. I thought that was quite cleverly
Yeah.
written. That I felt like he was rational in what he was doing, because this film is very much a mirror to the life at the moment. We're all fed up with the corruption of the world that we're in right now, and I think there's obviously a statement being made here, and I think the Riddler is the everyman who's trying to fight back and rally against the corruption, and he's doing it one way and Batman's doing it another. And I quite like that kind of aspect.
We
of
often
the story.
say that, don't we? That the best villains are the ones that you kind of suddenly find yourself sympathising with, like Thanos, right?
Yeah.
Thanos was Thanos, but at the same time, you kind of really understood.
Thanos was right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was right in my book. But you really sort of, his explanation for things about balance and so on, you got it. And it was, with this guy, you did find yourself, even, it wasn't even as on the nose as Thanos, but this was really subtle. It kind of crept up because the guy is a freak, and the way that he killed, I mean, that first murder was so brutal. And then actually the other guy, the police chief, where he puts the cage over his head, and then
It's almost like Saw, isn't it?
very, very Saw. Yeah, exactly. But then, really weirdly, part of your brain is actually sympathising with the guy, and you kind of appreciate where he's coming from, and that makes it even more compelling for me. So.
Let's move on very, very quickly, because there's a couple of things we want to cover before we finish off today. Let's look at the cinematography and the design of the film. Thoughts on that very, very quickly, please. I think we're all in agreement here, actually. Alex?
Yeah, I thought it was stunning. It's very dark and very wet, but the setting and the filming is just spot on. I saw it on a 4D 4D screen, so I had the sides as well as the front.
Did you have like rain and wind blowing on your face as well?
No, it didn't have any effects. It just meant that you had like a wraparound screen that when you were when they were up in the old tower with the bat signal.
Building.
You really felt like you were up in the tower. It was quite well done. But yeah, no, honestly, like it was just stunning. I think that in that respect, it was really well done. There's very little to fault there.
Bobby?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Alex, what cinema was that you saw it in? Which
it's a Cineworld.
Or...
Yeah,
okay,
it's Cineworld
4D.
Screen X. It's called, I think.
Okay, I might check that out.
Sounds like one of those specialist art house cinemas, if you ask me. Screen X.
Well, but that's just one of the screen types they have. It was Milton Keynes. It's not art house.
Alex saw a different version of the Batman to the rest of us, John. So it was absolutely stunning. I mean, the superhero equivalent of Dune, which is one of the most stunning films ever, I think. And the music added to it as well. I think Michael Giacchini's score was absolutely fantastic. It actually had little threads of Batman's past. I caught little riffs from the Tim Burton, Danny Elfman score, and I caught some Hans Zimmer in there as well. So I think it was quite respectful to Batman scores of old, but brought something quite new, and it was very dramatic as well. I mean, even kind of some of the real high action points sort of brought to mind some of the highlights of the No Time to Die score that was that Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer,
yeah. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, the whole thing, Gotham looked beautiful. I think it's possibly the most real looking version of Gotham that I've seen. because the Dark Knight series, that was very, I mean, you could tell it was Chicago because of all the wide streets and all of that kind of thing. But this just looked like it had just come out of, I mean, I've got the Long Halloween on my bedside cabinet, and it kind of looked like it came out of that. I think, I'm not sure where location, where it was filmed. I think Scotland, one of the Scottish cities.
Scotland was some of it.
Liverpool as
Some of
well.
it was London. Yeah,
Okay.
Liverpool as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Matt Reeves wanted to. He was inspired a lot by the Maltese Falcon and sort of the dark back streets in that film as well. Yeah, I mean, Mark, what are your thoughts? I know you've been a little bit down on the film, but I'm sure in terms of visuals.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the same screen as Alex. We saw it together, so I can only really echo what he said, to be honest with you. Some of the shots, particularly, when they're at the bat signal, were really nice. Also, I think this is one of the first films we actually see Batman in the daylight as well, towards the end, and some of that looked really good. I
He
have
never
to say
wore the
that.
bat suit in daylight in this film. Go back and watch it. He only wears a bat suit at night.
Well, no, he wore it at the end, after he saved him from the flooding, doesn't he? He's still got it on then.
Go back and watch it again, Mark, and see. I don't think he does.
Yeah, he does. 'Cause he's carrying the child out.
John, you
In the
need to
backseat.
have this. You need to sort this out now, John, because he's never going to go and see this film again.
Okay,
I'll go
I'll
on
do a
Mark's
selfie of that
behalf.
scene
I'll go
next
and
time I see
Mark.
it.
I'll go on your behalf, and I'll check that for you. Okay.
Yeah, no. At the very end, after he
Yeah.
falls into the water, when he rescues everyone with, he does the electric cable. Then after he's rescuing everyone, he does the voiceover. There's
That's I think
there's a shot
Mark's
of him in
right.
daylight.
I think
He's
Mark's
actually
right.
shown out of costume.
In
during
daylight.
daylight. He's hiding his face with a helmet and scarf and baseball cap most of the time in daylight, though.
No, he's wearing the Batman outfit at the end.
Well, we'll see.
All right.
Well,
We'll come back with the
Alex, help me
answers
out here.
We'll come back. No, I think you might be right, Mark, but I think we'll come back with the answers next time.
Yeah. What I liked about the way this film looked, when I look at Batman in the comics, especially some of the black and white comics, I think it's, as Bobby said, it's the most authentic kind of transfer from the framing of Batman, his silhouettes. I mean, we saw some of that. We got a taste of that in the trailer when he walks towards Oswald from the burning car. I think that's what Batman's about. He's got such an iconic silhouette of any superhero. I think of any superhero, and whenever you see him framed in this way, or he's dropping through the light down in somewhere, or you see him coming out the shadows in the dark, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. I just think it was so well framed. So that's why I liked it. Really, it felt like I was reading the comic on the screen. Let's finish off talking about the Batmobile, because I think this is another divisive character in the film. Alex, I see in our show notes here, just one word, Alex, you've written.
Well, I just said meh, because I mean it's a bit. It didn't evoke a particular feeling to me. But then the thing is, as I think back about the film, and we're introduced to the car sort of later on in the film, aren't we? And I think. But I do remember that when that was unveiled, I was like, this is good, in terms of like where it had set, and it meant that from the story point of view, he had backup, and this was going to be the car chase. So I think I don't know. I think it's the more I think about it, the better it gets. But it's just got no bells and whistles on it, and for me, I need bells and whistles.
How about you, Bobby? Okay, well, sorry, I cut you off there, Alex. You going to say something else? Sorry.
Oh no! What I want is I want a motorcycle thing that goes in and then I just that's what I want.
Like the Scrambler. Is it the Scrambler?
Yeah.
Was it called the
Yeah,
Scrambler?
that's right.
Tumbler.
Tumbler.
Yeah, that's what I want.
That's why we have you here, Mark, because you're the Batman expert.
I'd have told you that.
Bobby.
I've got the Dark Knight Rises trilogy special
and you,
edition.
so that's why we have
with the
Bobby and
book
Mark here.
and with the little scale models of each vehicle from the Batwing, the Batmobile, the Tumbler. Anyway, so I loved it because I'm a massive American muscle car fan, and it makes me want to go and cancel my mini JCW order and just go and get a Mustang and then basically do that to it. I thought it was
Get an electric
awesome.
one, mate.
But the thing is, I mean, the bells and whistles will come later, Alex, right? Because again, this is Batman in his youth, and we saw bits of the car sort of lying around quite early in the film when we first are introduced to the Bruce and I was going to say Alex, Alfred dynamic. And there's sort of, so he's obviously building that thing, because when we first see it parked up, when he's going to go after the Penguin, and he starts the car, and you're like, yes. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if he stalls it or it was a malfunction or something, but it basically, the car kind of starts, the lights come on, and then it basically cuts out. Do you remember that? Am I the only person?
Yeah.
Because I was like, has he stalled it?
It's because he built it himself, and so it's still
Yeah.
it's like a kit car, isn't it? It's still temperamental.
So we're all sort of like, it was a bit like, it reminded me of the feeling I get when the Millennium Falcon doesn't jump to hyperspace.
Oh, well done, Bobby, for bringing in a Star Wars reference.
Always.
Tick that box. Well done, mate. Well done.
Thank you. I was going to give Mark a little, this is why you failed. But yeah, I didn't want to be too harsh to him. He's been back after a long while and we've missed him. But yeah, I thought the car was brilliant. I want one. I'm gonna build her. I'm gonna take it to the Pimp My Ride workshop in North London. This Mustang that I'm gonna get one day, and just tell him, do that to this.
He won't be the first person who's asked that. I reckon there'll be a few people doing that.
Yeah.
Mark, what are your thoughts?
I'm not really a car person, so like I don't. It's not a thing for me. But like I think the car was totally appropriate for the film. It made sense that was his car. If it was if it looked like a Batmobile, it would make no sense. It wouldn't go with the film, the tone of the film, and that. So yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool. It was fun. I mean, it's impossible for the Batmobile for a 1989 film ever to be beaten. So it's impossible. That is the best Batmobile ever that will ever be done. But yeah, it was a car. It was a big black car that was quite fast. It was fine by me, and the chase sequence was pretty good actually. To be fair, I quite enjoyed that. That was one of the highlights. Yeah, that was quite good. So yeah, I'm not really into cars, so it's fine with me.
So I'm not sure you know about this, but they made several versions of the vehicle, obviously for the stunts and so on. But one of the versions was an electric version of the Batmobile.
Ooh.
They had to use an electric version to pull off one of the shots of the movie where the car felt like it was breathing, sort of pumping and breathing. So they actually used a drivable electric car version. So I think that's fascinating. You mentioned the bells and whistles, Bobby. Mark and Alex. I like the shot from the rear when it showed the gas coming out, the sort of the engine at the back.
Yeah.
And then you realise when you see it, they framed that shot so it looked like the way it was sitting in his garage, and so you knew he built it. Yeah, we all saw the Batmobile in the trailers, so people were prepared for it not being quite as sci-fi as the other ones have been. But and I've got a lot to talk about this, but I'm going to move quickly on. I just think it was quite interesting that the Batmobile didn't stand out. I think it was quite interesting as a guy who's trying to hide in the shadows. It just made more sense to have a car that was quite so splendiferous and the sort of thing you see Art Deco sort of inspired thing pulling up outside a cinema or a theatre. I just think it made more sense to be a kind of a scrappy, anonymous car that you might even see on the streets of Los Santos in Grand Theft Auto. It reminded me of one of those kind of generic versions, but actually had a lot hidden underneath the bonnet, and I quite like that. And I think we're going to stop there. And I think what we might do, we will probably return to The Batman because there are films to come, and there are other things that could be happening. I've heard a rumor of Colin Farrell coming back for a spin-off series about
that's
Penguin on HBO.
That's been greenlit.
And we do need to talk about. We haven't talked enough about the music score, but I think we'll come back to this in a future podcast.
I think
it's
play pause turn listeners. If you would like, when the Batman comes out on digital download, if you'd like to hear a watch-along episode with Mark, then just write in and let us know, and we'll make it happen. We'll chain Mark up.
Again, is it?
Yeah, get the handcuffs
If
up.
you thought Robert Pattinson was depressed in that film, wait until you hear me for 3 hours.
I think the only way we can do it, Mark, is if you wear a floppy wig and we put eyeshadow on you as well whilst you're watching it.
I think so, yeah. I'll
That'd
tell
be
you
worth
what, as
watching
well,
on.
And the final thing I was saying is, what I thought was hilarious on this is that when the DA gets blown up, is that Batman just walks towards him when there's a bomb, and he gets up, he's fine, he's got amazing, his batsuit just saves him from any injury, and then when he dives off the police building, he sort of falls over he stumbles.
Oh, we didn't talk about the wingsuit, did we?
And he crashes, and he's absolutely fine. Gets up, no problems at all.
Well, no,
he was wearing a wingsuit, wasn't he?
And then when he gets knocked unconscious from the bomb,
he limps a little bit.
He gets knocked unconscious from the bomb, and he's suddenly in the police station in the nick. So it's not
a bomb. He should be dead.
No, but it was a short proximity. It was a short
him.
proximity bomb that was designed to kill that guy, and he was just in its blast radius. If you looked at it,
he's not even got a bloody nose.
But there's nothing to him.
That cathedral didn't burn to the ground, did it, Mark? It was literally just that spot.
Did the window smash? I don't think even the window smashed. Actually.
No, it was a short proximity.
To...
It was just designed to blow the person
radius.
up. It was meant to blow up. It wasn't meant to blow anyone else up. The Riddler didn't want to kill anybody else.
Please listen along again to our next podcast, which talks about the pyrotechnics and mechanics of bombs in films. Look forward to that.
If you want 3 hours of this, I'll do it. It's fine. That's what.
I think we need to stop there. And
It's such a stupid film.
I think we just stop there before.
Do you know earlier I
Mark
thought
explodes
about
like a low blast radius bomb
Batmobile?
himself,
Do you know what?
I
thought Mark was going to say, the car was, it was like the film, the film was rubbish, so it got a rubbish Batmobile as well or something. You did it. What would you give this, Mark? What would you give this out of 10?
Oh.
3.5.
Wow.
Dear.
Right, so let's just straw poll this. John?
I'd say it gives about an 8 out of 10.
Okay, Alex?
I'd give it an 8.
Okay, and I'm sort of at an 8.5 to 9 at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah.
Let's score it again after we've watched it again, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right, let's do some housekeeping. You can follow the following people on Twitter. I'm at John PR Evans. Alex, you are
At Alex Hansford.
And Bobby
At It's Bobby Revilla.
And then you can follow Mark on at I'm Vengeance on Twitter. You can also follow Playpaul's Turn account as well, which is at Playpaul's Turn, and you can find us online at playpaulsturn.show. This has been Playpaul's Turn, and thank you for listening.